right down our valley. Local market in the mountains also. These are spices. Not all local. A lot of this is imported stuff. So there's South America. Can you find Ecuador? Really small, huh, up in that little corner. But for biodiversity per area, it's #1 in the world. And even, okay, that's what it looks like. Hard to see without the colors. Andes up the middle, Amazon on the right, and coast on the left. It's kind of dry in the south, but the upper part is part of the Choco bioregion, which is wet coastal Colombia and down into Ecuador.
Where are you?
And that's where we live. We're northwest of Quito. About there. The Guayabamba River is the river we're on. That's where the lahar comes down when the volcano erupts. We're at 500 meters, 1,600 feet. And on the equator, 500 meters, even 1,000 meters, you can grow all the tropical stuff. 3,000 feet, you can grow durians, no problem. In fact, where we are, it's unusually cool because there's the Humboldt Current that comes up South America. And because of that, our dry season, our 6-month dry season, is overcast usually. So stuff never dries out. It doesn't rain much in dry season, but stuff never dries out. And it's quite cool. You expect 500 meters in the tropics to be pretty hot if it's sunny at all. Our temperature is more like right here, really. But all the tropical stuff, it doesn't get any cooler in winter. And all the tropical, lowlands tropical stuff grows fine.
Can you explain why there's so much biodiversity there?
Yeah, I'm gonna give an example here.
Okay.
There it is. World's largest number of bird species by country. Colombia has more birds than any other country in the world. And Ecuador is not far behind, even though it's tiny, huh? Notice most of those, 4 out of 5 of those are Andean countries. And because there's a lot of biodiversity, because there's the Andes, there's a lot of, which separates the two lowlands parts, a lot of inter-Andean valleys. In fact, the Amazon, the richest part of the Amazon by far, is up at the foothills and against the foothills of the Andes. So in Ecuador, Colombia, Peru, all have that part, Bolivia too. And that's super rich. There are areas, small areas, 100 hectares, 100 acres, that have 500 species of birds. Wow. And it's not just birds, it's plants too. Whoops. Okay, this is the same thing. There we go. Plant species. So those countries are all big and tropical. United States not so much, certainly big, not so tropical. But there's Ecuador. Tiny little Ecuador, the size of Colorado. Really a lot of biodiversity in Ecuador.
I can't see it here. How many plant species in Ecuador?
Oh, sorry.
Big, larger.
20,000.
Okay.
And Brazil, #1 in the country, in the world, is 56,000. United States also has 20,000. India also has 20,000. And that's, the United States has been better studied too. There's bound to be a lot of undescribed ones in Ecuador, whereas they're not so much in the United States.
Jim, does that just describe indigenous plants?
No, native plants.
Native.
Yeah, native plants, yes. Well, no, I guess that's not strictly true. When botanists go into a place, they collect everything, huh? So it doesn't matter if it's not indigenous at all. Where most of the species are in the rainforest, there's almost nothing that's introduced, really. It's only cultivated areas where there's introduced stuff. But I suspect that includes all. It includes introduced stuff too. But it'd be a small contribution, I think. I don't know how we got double of these two, but those may be easier to see.
Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah, easier to see. Okay, on to plants. This is a Renialmia. It's a ginger family. There's a lot more gingers in Asia than in the Americas, but there's a couple really interesting genera in the Americas. One is the spiral gingers, costus, which have edible stalks and edible flowers. And you see them here in Hawaii, 1 or 2 species that are planted just as ornamentals, but they're good edibles. Actually, when we arrived, I'll show a picture of it later on, but when we arrived in Ecuador, in Colombia rather, didn't have any fruit trees on the farm. Our daily juice was the costus, the juice squeezed out of the costus, which is sour juice, and diluted with sweet and water. That was our daily lemonade. And the flowers of all the spiral gingers, the flowers are all edible. And good, great addition to salads. This, however, is not a spiral ginger. It's another ginger, Renialmia. And it looks kind of like a cardamom plant. The pods look kind of like cardamom pods. And it has a little bit of sweet pulp, which is used as a condiment by a couple of the indigenous groups. Also has a seed, which like cardamom is real strong flavored. And I've often theorized that if this plant were in Asia, people would be using it more. People were more into spicy things, really. It's a strong flavor, but it's gingery. This is another ginger relative from Africa, this one, Aframomum. And it's more of an edible fruit. Sweet pulp, mild flavored, but good. Pretty much all the gingers, too, the tender vegetative parts of the plants are good to chew and suck on. They have a gingery flavor. You know these torch gingers? You get a new shoot that's just coming up or a flower that's just coming out. It's nice to suck on. This is Bacardia, is the genus, Menteng. These are Asian fruits. There's a lot of different ones. Very productive at our place. Easy to graft, even across species. This is another Bacardia, kind of an unknown one. The pulp itself is orange, and that one's sweet. There's a few real sour Bacarias, actually there's one coming up, but most of them are sweet and good, and commercial crops in Asia, in Southeast Asia.
Is there a common name, English name?
The first one is Menteng.
Menteng.
Menteng, M-E-N-T-E-N-G. Not really an English name, it's more of a local name, and not throughout Southeast Asia, but from one part, and I'm not even sure, maybe Borneo, where they call it that. This is another Bacardia.
Did you bring in cuttings or order seeds, or how did you get such a variety?
Yeah, I got seeds. I didn't order seeds. Never bought a seed. But I exchanged seeds with people, with other people. And that's how I get it. Almost
the
all by
world.
seeds. We have gone to Asia twice. And a little bit around Latin America too. And in Ecuador, I collect for sure. I go around. But mostly by mail. This is another Bacardia. Rambai is the common name. A little hard to tell what you're looking at. You're looking up at the tree. There's just tons of these fruits. They're yellow when they're ripe. Really good.
That's like eating out of the hand kind of.
Yes. Yeah, all the Bacardias sort of have pulp that sort of sticks to the seeds. So they're not so appropriate for making stuff into the juice or anything. But they're really good out of hand. So in Asia, there's the Artocarpus genus, which is breadfruit and jackfruit and meringue. A lot of good edible fruits. And you also eat the seeds. This is in the same family, Moracia, but it's American. It's Batocarpus instead of Artocarpus, a different genus, but very similar. Edible fruit, edible pulp, and edible seeds. And the one advantage of this, they're small, but you don't have to peel the seeds, like you do with jackfruit and breadfruit. You just eat them just as is. So it's really quite interesting. My botanical names, by the way, I learned them in Ecuador and in Colombia. So I pronounce them like they're in Spanish. So they sound different to people who pronounce their names.
What's the flavor of the fruit like on that?
On this, sweet and mild, I would say.
Not like jackfruit?
No. No, it's quite mild. But really pretty too, huh?
Yeah.
They kind of break over, kind of looks like an anona or something.
Jim, is this something you tend to offer a seed anymore, or not
This
so often?
species?
Well, any of the Podocarpus.
Any of the Batocar? I don't think it's on my webpage, actually.
Yeah.
but I get seeds sometimes.
Do you have to cook the seeds?
Pardon?
Do you have to?
Yes, you do have to cook the seeds, yes. This is a dwarf anato. This is around here in Ecuador, in Hawaii rather. It's a color, food coloring, which is used commercially as a food coloring. And sometimes to color cloth and to paint bodies actually. Several indigenous groups use it to paint bodies. It works very well for them.
Lipstick plant.
Yeah,
That's what they
lipstick
call it.
plant, okay. But this is a dwarf variety. Usually they're pretty good size. This is really tiny, starts to produce at this height. This is the local caoutchouc or rubber, which locally they still use for rubber. It's an edible fruit. Usually by the time they fall down, they're pretty rotten. But they are edible and really pretty. Interesting enough, this rubber, which is native to coastal Colombia and Ecuador, in World War II, when there was a rubber shortage, they came down and tapped these trees. Makes good rubber. Not as productive as the commercial rubber, and also, interestingly enough, not even the same family. Totally different botanical family. This is a Mordacia. This is our daughter teaching our son to pee off the edge of the house. This is clavija. This is an Amazonian species, kind of an understory species. Small edible fruits. But there's a type higher up in the Andes, like 1,500 meters or so, that has big fruits, quite well esteemed by people. Clavija is the genus. There's an ornamental too. This is the spiral ginger.
Oh, that's pretty.
You know, they don't always have this kind of stems. Usually they're smooth stems. But all different colors and sizes. And the flowers, which are usually terminal flowers, are really good. A bit sour, but really good in salads. That's a cupuaçu skin. Not sure how that got in there. This is dabai. It's from Borneo. It's a relative of pili nut. It does have edible nuts like pili nut, but it's grown and marketed for the pulp, which is oily and starchy and very rich, usually eaten with salt or soy sauce. It has to be softened up in warm water or in the mouth for 10 minutes. Really good, you know, compare it to an avocado or something with oil and starch. And yummy. And really pretty, huh? They get black when they're ripe. And pili nut also. Pili nut is maybe a little better known. You can eat the pulp of that in the same way. It's quite a lot of pulp. Again, you have to soften it up in warm water. And it's really good. This is Davidson's plum. A little hard to see maybe here, but the outside of the fruit, it's got the white blush on like a European plum has. Looks exactly like a European plum. In fact, it's from Australia, totally unrelated. You can see from up above it's a different color. Sour, makes excellent juice and jam. Davidson's plum.
It's not really an actual plum.
No, it's not really an actual plum. Yeah, I'm sure it had an indigenous name, but Mr. Davidson had one in his backyard and got in there first. This is Durio cutagensis. It's not the common durian species, it's a different species. Quite different, obviously they look similar. The pulp is much more firm and sticky. Different taste, quite strong flavor and strong taste also. A few people like it better than regular durian. Most people prefer regular durian.
What's the difference in taste?
Well, they're totally different in taste. I can't describe the taste. I can describe the texture, kind of.
Yeah, go
It's
ahead.
got a very different taste. It's sweet. Sweet enough. Doesn't taste like a durian.
Is the texture harder or softer? How
Yes, it's definitely a stickier, harder, firmer flesh by far. Yeah. Very productive variety, too.
And it's has strong odor like regular durian?
It has a strong odor, but it's different from regular durian. But it does have. Maybe not quite as strong as regular durian, but it does have an odor. And what it also has is beautiful flowers. It's worth it just for a flowering tree. And those are big, huh? It's hard to tell, but these are, those clumps of flowers are big. The tree fills up with.
The flowers speak.
The flowers have a characteristic smell, and I wouldn't call it flowery. Not bad.
Regular durian has a nice smell, the flowers.
Uh-huh. This is the first couple slides, right? Showed you the sachi inchi, the thing that's super high in omega-3. Okay, this is inchi. Sachi inchi means inchi from the forest, basically, like wild inchi. This is the more domesticated, cultivated nut, native to the upper Amazon. Typically, Caryodendron is the genus. Typically, they're big trees, take a long time to come into production, dioecious, you need male and female. This type is a different species, whole different species, monoecious, precocious, really interesting. Slightly smaller seeds, but pretty much the same taste. Really nice.
How big are those?
The fruits are maybe that big, and each of the 3 nuts is maybe that big.
Okay. Thank you.
This is a cactus, just a local native edible cactus, kind of like a tiny dragon fruit. Tastes about the same. Interesting enough, the dragon fruit is unknown in Ecuador and in the Andes. They're almost unknown. Whereas the yellow pitahaya is common. That's where it's from, and it's common in the markets. Grown typically not in the lowlands, but up higher, 1,500 meters. And it's a lot tastier than the red one. Not as pretty, but it's a lot better. They do make hybrids now, too. But the ones I've had taste like not as good as the yellow one, but better than the red one. So frog, this is not a coqui frog on our atlas. Same color as the atlas. Just a mixture of fruits.
Are these yours?
Yeah, it's taken on our table. Yeah, I made the display so somebody could take a picture. So a local Ecuadorian magazine came to do an article. And the photographer had done articles in National Geographic. So he took some good pictures. Although this one, with the lady from the side, it's real pretty. But he left off a half or a third of the fruits.
Really?
To him it wasn't important, It was important.
What's that star fruit? Or it's with the
That's
spikes?
a ginger, the red one.
Yeah, straight kind of
Yeah.
to the left and middle.
There'll be a slide with that later. This?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a ginger.
Is it? Okay.
Ornamental usually.
All right.
But also like any ginger, you can eat it sort of tender.
Thank you.
Maybe what I'm thinking of, I got this right in front of me. There's what they call Ispingo in Ecuador. It's cinnamon-like. It's in the cinnamon family, not the same cinnamon genus. Better than cinnamon, we think. Here's a little packet which maybe you can pass around. Smell it. Open up and put it on some on your tongue if you want.
Spango, S-P-A-N-G-O.
Ispingo is the name. I-S-H-P-I-N-G-O. Ispingo. Ocotea is the genus. It's, we'll talk about it later actually because there's a slide of it. That's another one with a flash.
Excuse me.
So that's a view of the orchard. I climbed up in a tree to take it. But that's kind of what it looks like. A lot more like a forest than an orchard for sure. This has been planted now for 20 years maybe.
You fill it in with understory plants as not these primary trees.
Yeah, I'll show you actually this slide shows a photo of an area that I've just recently planted. What I do, what was on the farm was forest. If I'm going to plant a new area, I cut down anything bigger than that, all the big trees. And the rest I leave, which is really a lot, huh? And then I make rows, which, just enough to walk through, and plant along that row, plant the fruit trees along that row. And little by little, clear out a little more shade, and the trees, with time, I'll girdle to have them die as they stand up and fall. Most rainforest trees like shade when they're small, prefer shade when they're small. And lots of shade means lots of organic matter production, which is really important. If you compare the organic matter in the soil in the forest with a soil in any place that's been cultivated for a while, there's a huge difference. And organic matter is like the basis for soil formation. It's the basis for maintaining fertility. So you've got to have a lot of organic matter production. And that means you've got to have a forest, pretty much. As an alternative, a little more about sustainability and so on. If you're growing, I think that annual crops can't really be grown sustainably in the wet tropics. If you're planting annual crops, you have to clear the land first. And that means your organic matter production is zero. It stays low for a very long time. It's not good until you get a forest again, years later. And clearing it over and over again to plant annual crops, your organic matter production and how much you got in the soil is going to be really, really low. So I think you got to have a forest. I think maybe someday most of our food will come from the forest. I recognize that we eat bread and rice too, huh? But maybe we're going to have to figure out a different way to do it. Another thing related to that, compost. We have a compost pile. The garbage from your kitchen you put in the compost pile, you put on the plants. It's a great thing. But another example would be you cut the weeds someplace where you don't want them and put them in your compost pile. And then you put that in your garden or something like that. Well, that place where you cut the weeds, the organic matter production in that area just went way down, which is critical, huh? I mean, you can do it once in your farm and it's not going to you're not even going to notice the difference, but it's, in the long run, it's not really sustainable. All those leaves you'd left there, if you just left them, they would have rotted and been down in the soil and build up the soil. And over in your compost pile, most of the minerals that are in those leaves, you'll get in your compost. Not quite all, but most of it. The organic matter, you'll get only a small part of it. That's why, so you get a more concentrated fertilizer because the organic matter is gone. So the minerals are more concentrated. And it's wonderful to put on your plants, but it's a really steep price you're paying. That's an extreme example to clear an area to put somewhere else, but it's typically what happens too. You got to be aware that you want to be making a lot of organic matter at all times. It seems to me.
Do you have weeds that you have to deal with?
Yeah, actually, I think the next slide I'll talk a little more about weeds. Wait a minute. Okay, this is like the understory of my orchards. That's what it looks like. Lots of plants. There are trails through too. And I don't drive anything through, obviously. This is actually where I've made the row you can sort of see. It wasn't the previous one. Made a row to plant stuff. You can see it, there's lots of other plants there.
Very deep soil, I'm assuming?
Well, not super deep soil, but a meter. Yeah, yeah, I know. So this is a little harder to tell, but this is more of an open area. And what there is growing at the, which is maybe this tall, all that vegetation, is mostly kudzu. And you will have heard of kudzu. Okay, the tropical species is a different species, but it's very much the same that's all over the south. It has the same characteristics. Doesn't have the tuber, but other than that, it'll bury everything. Very common as a cover crop in all the oil plantations in Ecuador, and I assume in Asia too, and in other crops too. It nodulates, it's a legume, nodulates very well, excellent fodder, and it covers up the other weeds. So you don't have to, the trees that keep coming up, you have to cut down so that they don't shade your fruit trees too much. Well, it buries them pretty well. So what you've got is a kudzu ground cover, which is, this thick, and you never cut. So those are the advantages. The disadvantage is that it doesn't let the weeds grow. So all you've got as far as biodiversity is your fruit trees and kudzu. So a lot less biodiversity. I don't use it anymore. And I've never seen it here in Hawaii, which is probably good. Once you've got it in an area, it drops seeds, the seeds remain dormant, you're never going to get rid of it.
Can goats eat it? Or like
I'm sure.
grazing animals?
Yeah, cows and horses eat it, so I'm
that's
sure goats
good.
could eat it.
And it's good for them?
Yeah, sure, it's a legume, so it's very high in nutrients.
That's good. And
Yeah.
do humans eat it?
No,
Okay.
not that I've ever heard.
Does it climb up into your fruit trees?
Sure, you gotta keep cutting it. Yeah.
So you're able to stay on top of that?
Yeah. To some degree, fruit trees that have very low-hanging branches are more difficult. Also, it depends how much, if your fruit trees are close together, they're making a lot of shade, the kudzu can't make it. And the kudzu, by the way, does not go into the forest either, into the primary forest. It's too much shade. But if you've got an area where there's a fruit tree kind of out in the sun, then the kudzu can climb up. And often you cut off some of the low branches on the outside, just so the kudzu won't climb up in there so fast. In fact, the kudzu can climb up a big tree and practically bury it, but it's not going to kill it. You just have to, if you get way, way behind, you just cut the bottom. You don't have to pull it out of there, and it dies, and the fruit tree is okay.
So because it's nitrogen fixing, do you notice an improvement in fruiting after it's been growing there for a while?
Well, it's hard for me to know what to compare it to. But I think so, yeah. Nitrogen, our soil is not really low in nitrogen. It's low in the minerals. It doesn't really help with the minerals.
What kind of soil is it that you have there?
It's very low in minerals, but it's high in, it's volcanic. Most of the soil in the area is good. It's reasonably high in minerals and high in organic matter. My soil is high in organic matter and low in minerals. But we've got a good swimming hole. We have it.
Question, is kudzu medicinal?
I'm sorry, what?
Is kudzu a medicinal?
The temperate kudzu, one that's in the south, has a tuber. That's in Japan and even in the south it's used medicinally. I can't remember how. This kudzu, I've never heard of a medicinal use. It does not have a tuber, and I've never heard of a medicinal use for it. Almost all common plants have medicinal uses, so I suspect that it might have. The nice little mushrooms that grow there. A few years ago, National Geographic had a cover of one of these mushrooms with a little frog inside. We always figured they probably drugged the frog. Or at least we wondered if they drugged the frog. This is American Garcinia. Garcinia is the genus of mangostines and madroños. And there's a lot in Asia and there's a lot in the Americas too. The American ones are all yellow. Flavor is similar to mangosteen, not as much to eat usually. Some of them are sour, but others are sweet. This is a local native, undescribed as far as I know. Achacha, maybe some of you heard of achacha. That's an American Garcinia. Bakupari. That's an American Garcinia from the Choco. Garcinia magnifolia, big leaf. See, there's a Garcinia magnifolia, which means big leaves. There's also more commonly Garcinia macrophylla, which means big leaves. These are bigger. Another Garcinia button mangosteen. Relative of mangosteen, called that because I got buttons on the bottom. Very nice. More tart than a mangosteen, but sweet enough to be really good out of hand. Very thin skin, you peel. Dioecious. Dioecious meaning male and females on different plants. This is another American Garcinia. This is an Asian Garcinia. Not even sure what it is. Yeah, the Garcinias, the shells of Garcinia cambogia and Asian Garcinia, what I've heard, I haven't looked yet, I've heard in any supermarket in the States you can buy pills that have an extract of the shell of cambogia for weight loss. And so these shells are interesting. And I'll show you, we have some other shells. The cambogia and other shells that we make jams out of, which keeps us skinny. Lots of jam.
Are they bitter like mangosteen?
No, that's enough. You know, the ones we use, which are this one and the cambogia, they're not bitter. They're a little bit astringent, like a little bit of astringency, but they're not bitter.
When you say American, you mean the Americas versus
Yes.
Asia?
Yes, tropical America. So this is a Brunei cherry, another Garcinia. It's got a soft shell. You open up and it's sweet inside, very nice. But the outside shell, it makes a really, really good juice and jam. Sour, but really nice. Also very productive, small tree. Really pretty ornamental palms from the Amazon. Those are black leaves. I don't know if you can even tell, but those leaves are almost black. And the growth habit, too, straight up is really unusual.
Do you know the name of this?
Yeah, Heonoma atrovirens. Atrovirens. Geonoma is the genus. A lot of small palms in that genus. This is Champadek. Familiar with Champadek? It's a relative of jackfruit and breadfruit, of course. You know, quite similar to jackfruit, but the fruits have this characteristic cylindrical shape, a little bit smaller, much stronger odor and taste, and the seeds are easier to prepare for eating. Easier to prepare than the jackfruit. Easier to peel and prepare. Do people eat jackfruit seeds here? Yeah. So this is a beautiful local snake, not poisonous, comes and eats our chicken eggs. Takes them quite a while to open up enough to swallow it. But when he does, I catch him and I get the eggs back. Takes them a long time to open up and swallow, but it's really easy.
That's hilarious.
You know, they don't break right away. I think they have to dissolve with those digestive juices or something.
Do they eat rodents or they are?
I'm sure they must, yeah. Birds. We've seen them going up into trees to eat baby birds, like. Have to be stuff that would be easy to catch because they're not poisonous. They can't bite them or anything.
Do you have a lot of poisonous ones?
We have some poisonous ones, yeah. Guayabilla, this is from the Choco bioregion. It's interesting, we often do a spice test on the farm. We give people cinnamon and clove and stuff like that, people to smell the leaves. They smell just like the spices. And people, it's really hard. There's not a good connection. People say, oh yeah, oregano. There's not a good connection in the brain between smells and words. This seems to be an exception. Everybody smells this and says lilikoi, if they know Hawaiian. It smells just like yellow passion fruit, lilikoi. And everybody recognizes it as that. And it's an excellent fruit. Sour, even more sour than lilikoi. Great juice and jam.
What's it called?
Guayabilla. It's from the Choco bioregion also.
It's not a body.
Pardon?
It's a tree, not a body.
It's a tree, small tree. This is one cut over.
Is it related to the Nicole at all?
No.
No.
No, it's a Myrtaceae guayaba family relative. We call this guaycuyaco apple because it looks a lot like an apple. What it is, an artocarpus, the jackfruit, breadfruit relative, wild collected in Borneo. So it's nothing at all like an apple inside. Kind of reddish and sour.
Is that a smooth skin or a little rough skin?
It's slightly rough, actually.
So they don't all have lumpy outsides that match their seeds.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a lot. Artocarpus is a really big genus. There's really a lot of them. This is Paco. This is another thing from the Choco bioregion, Gustavia. And people know them because they're planted as ornamentals, because of those great flowers. Really fragrant and beautiful. But in the Choco, in the Colombian Choco, it's a commercial fruit. And the orange pulp you can see has 53,000 international units of vitamin A per 100 grams of fruit, which is the most of any fruit. And it's kind of squash-like. There's a relative of this, which is more oily and very, very good. I'll show you that a little later.
Do you know which species this is, Jim?
Superba. Gustavia superba. This is another Gustavia.
Jim, are all Gustavias, the fruits, edible?
I'm not sure. The three that I have producing are, but I'm not sure. You know, people don't, well, I'll tell you a little something about this. This is the one that's from the Amazon, Gustavia macaronensis, commercial crop in the, in one little corner of the upper Amazon. And it's about this big, reddish, and orange pulp on the inside with big seeds, just like the ones we saw. And if you eat it on Tuesday, it's hard and kind of tasteless. And if you eat it on Thursday, it's already rotten, and the rot that it has is a really unpleasant rot. Get one day to eat it. I think that's part of the reason why it hasn't spread around much. But I think it's really excellent, really rich and oily and starchy, not sweet at all. Like a pejibaye or a chontaduro, peach palm.
Sorry, please, I just want to know, are these fruits that you're showing accessible on Hawaii? Are these like in your garden or are these just in general shopping?
These are all the pictures are from my garden, yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and a bunch of them are in Hawaii. Oscar has a bunch of them.
Okay.
What was the previous Gustavia you just showed, the red one?
Longifolia.
Is that a good fruit?
People have told, I swear people have told me in the Amazon that, oh, you don't eat that one. And I've tried it and it's good, just like the others, I think. So I don't know. Maybe a long-term poisoning. This one has a caption. This is a rambutan relative, same genus as rambutan. Quite good. For Borneo. This is native on our farm. Hesteria is the genus. Not edible. But really neat looking, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the red part is the calyx, and the green is a single immature seed. It's a black seed. The calyx is presumably to attract seed dispersers. This is a heliconia from the Choco, probably undescribed. Heliconia from the Amazon, also an unusual one.
Hairy.
No.
Well, the flowers, some heliconias, the flowers, like sexy pink, you can take, like what you're seeing is the leaf, but the flower of the sexy pink is actually very sweet. I even had a joke once to taste my sexy pink nectar. It's a tiny little flower and it's sweet.
Oh, neat. Have you
But
tried
because
other
of the buzz,
other
you
heliconias?
guys be careful because of the buzz. But yeah, so the heliconia is actually, the leaf are pretty, but the flowers are not, but the leaf attracts the birds to take the nectar, the flower, the pollen.
So have you tried to eat other heliconias?
Just the sexy pink.
You should try some others, huh? That sounds
Have you
encouraging.
tried? Well, I know some of them you can eat the rhizome, but we sell them, so we don't want to eat the rhizomes. But do you guys eat the rhizomes?
No. I've never even tried a flower, even though we eat the flower of the costas all the time.
Oh yeah, the cocoa.
Yeah, the flowers are small, huh? The flowers just stick out of those bracts.
Yeah, the sexy pink one, just because
Yeah.
it's hanging, it's easy and.
Yeah. Some of them don't even hardly stick out. But it'd be interesting to try. This is a cacao relative, different genus, Erania. But the pods have sweet pulp just like cacao. And actually the seeds are not at all bitter. Locally you take it and you chew the whole thing.
Oh, what is it called? How do you spell
The
it?
genus is Erania, Herrrania.
Herrrania.
Erania. And there's a lot of them.
And the name is?
Cacao de Monte, sort of like wild cacao.
De Monte, so there's a lot of them in the genus?
Yeah, there's a lot of them in the genus, yes.
Oh,
And I think I saw another one.
Moderated cacao? Butter of the chocolate?
No, this isn't Madre de Cacao. That's a common name for something
And
else.
Is it as medicinal as the bitter one?
You know, I know it is medicinal, but I don't know what for. So I can't help you with that.
I'm curious, can you make chocolate out that one as well?
Well, I've read people who say you can make chocolate out of it. We've never roasted and ground the seeds, but you can taste the seeds just raw.
Do they taste like?
I wouldn't say they taste anything like chocolate. They have a lot of oil, and you could make a cake out of them, and it would be good, but it wouldn't really be like chocolate.